O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishin, Inuak, Dakota Oate, Dene, Tsuut'ina, and Nihithowug nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Good afternoon, everybody. Please be seated. Oh, the Honourable Member for Union Station?
Yes, Madam Speaker. I rise on a matter of privilege.
The Honourable Member for Union Station on a matter of privilege.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The prima facie case is simple. While all MLAs enjoy the freedom speech, as many speakers such as Parent and Fraser have noted, they must do so with great care. In discussing the limits of freedom of speech, Speaker Parent noted that suggestive language or innuendo with regard to individuals or an individual's associations with others can provoke an angry response which inevitably leads the House into disorder as a specific limit. This is even more pronounced when the words made in this House concern another member. These words interfere with and prevent MLAs from doing their job, and as such, result in a breach of privilege. Yesterday, the Minister of Education stood in the House and said to the Leader of the official opposition, and I quote, "Seems to stand in this House on a day-to-day basis pretending to be some kind of actor. He's no Adam Beach," end quote. The comment was made on the record while the member had the floor. It is present in Hansard, as well as audible and visible in the recordings of the proceedings of the House shared publicly. It's a deeply disrespectful and demeaning remark regarding the Leader of the official opposition. It is an insult which in itself is a violation of privilege. It is a breach of privilege in an additional sense as well. This comment would not have been made about a non-Indigenous member of this House. What's more, it would not be tolerated in another workplace. The only basis for the comparison is the race of the Leader of the official opposition. The Leader of the official opposition is being singled out on the basis of his race. It is a disrespectful comment with a racial characteristic. It's outrageous the Minister has not apologized for it. It's meant to diminish and insult an Indigenous member of our chamber. It was meant to pretend that there are two sorts of Indigenous people in our province, the so-called good ones and so-called bad ones. Madam Speaker, I need to pause here to make a clear point. The idea that there are good Indigenous people and bad Indigenous people in our province, and that the Minister can decide who they are and then hurl abuse at one group, is an awful thought and should never be expressed in this chamber. It is an insidious comparison that tries to use the fact a member of this chamber is Indigenous to undermine the content of the words that they say. The MLA who made this remark, incredibly, is in charge of the provincial education system and has a duty to advance efforts aimed at reconciliation. Comparisons that try to divide a community in this way, Madam Speaker, are gross. This interferes in the performance of parliamentary functions. The disrespectful comment with racial characteristics unduly influences the performance of parliamentary functions of not just the Leader of the official opposition, but potentially other members who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color, as we know, BIPOC, including myself, Madam Speaker, as well, because it calls to mind our own experiences with racism. The influence these comments could have are chilling on the effect of participation in question period, debate, or even attending this chamber in person. This influence is undue because it singles out the leader of the official opposition in a way that other members who are non-Indigenous do not have to contend with. Comments of that nature are a detriment to all members of this House, and all members should be aligned in knowing these types of comments have no place in any space, anywhere. Race, including indigeneity, is a protected characteristic under the Manitoba Human Rights Code. If the minister will not apologize, then the Premier and yourself as Speaker should take action. I raised this at the first opportunity as I took the time to consult the relevant authority and to review Hansard. I move, seconded by the MLA for Point Douglas, that the House call on the Minister of Education to apologize immediately and to fully and unconditionally retract his remarks. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just on this matter of privilege, Madam Speaker, I was just looking back into Hansard to make sure that what the member opposite is saying is accurate. I'm not denying, Madam Speaker, that in fact in Hansard that it said that I was actually pointing to the member for the opposition leader and said that on a day-to-day basis he pretends to be some kind of actor. He's no Adam Beach. I did say that, Madam Speaker, because Adam Beach is a well-known Indigenous famous actor right here in this great province of ours, Madam Speaker. When it comes to the members from Fort Rouge, he does stand on a day-to-day basis, and I was pointing out the fact that he's not a great actor like Adam Beach. I could have used multiple other actors. Yes, I used an Indigenous one, Madam Speaker. I did not in any way, shape, or form mean to intimidate the leader of the opposition or talk down to his Indigenous culture, Madam Speaker. I could have used multiple different actors, famous actors, and compared the member for Fort Rouge to those actors of that fact that he stands in this House. Manitobans see through his actorship that he puts on display each and every day, Madam Speaker. So I guess, Madam Speaker, I will apologize for using Adam Beach's name and referencing the leader of the opposition, tying him to Adam Beach. I've met Adam Beach on multiple occasions at South Beach Casino because ties in there with Broken Head First Nation at times, and the Adam Beach Film Studio. I hold Adam Beach in high regard, Madam Speaker, and the leader of the opposition is no Adam Beach. I could have used other actors, Madam Speaker. I could have said Denzel Washington, but then the member would have got up, hammered me on that. I could have used Jim Carrey, Madam Speaker, but the member would have got up and hammered me on that. But you know what, Madam Speaker? Actually, Jim Carrey, he does have a film called, a 1997 film called Liar, Liar. Now, that being said, I could have compared the member to Jim Carrey. But, Madam Speaker, on this matter of privilege, there was no ill intent meant, just pointing out the fact that the leader of the opposition is not a great actor, and Manitobans are seeing it displayed here today as well, as the member for Union Station stands up and tries to smear me, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Before recognizing any other members to speak, I would remind the House that remarks at this time by honourable members are limited to strictly relevant comments about whether the alleged matter of privilege has been raised at the earliest opportunity and whether a prima facie case has been established. The honourable member for River Heights.
Madam Speaker, this legislative chamber is a really important venue for debating ideas and policy and the future of this province, what's happening in the province. But we have gone far too far in the last few weeks and months in making personal attacks on people. And I think that what you as Speaker need to remind people is that we're not here to denigrate others in this chamber, to try and cut them down, to try and imply, particularly when there are racial overtones, to try and make implications that somebody is less than somebody else. I think that we need to stand up against personal attacks, and this needs to be much more vigorous than it has been in the last few weeks and months. And this is an example. It's really the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's happening at the moment. And we need to dig deeper and look at the whole picture. And we need to be very careful. And I think that the member, the Minister of Education, may not have meant to say something that was offensive, but in trying to cut the leader of the opposition down, he has done so. And it's really important that, because the Minister of Education should be providing a role model for students. The really vital thing that we have to remember as we're debating here is that we need to be examples for young people growing up, because we want young people in this province to have a really good future. And we need to have, in particular, a Minister of Education who can stand as an example of behavior to all Manitobans, but particularly to all young people. Thank you.
I would indicate that a matter of privilege is a very serious concern, and I would also indicate, as the Minister of Education did not provide an unqualified apology, I am going to have to take this under advisement to consult the authorities, and I will return to the House with a ruling. Routine proceedings, introduction of bills. Committee reports. The Honourable Member for Springfield-Rashott.
Madam Speaker, I wish to present the first report of the Standing Committee on Justice.
Your Standing Committee on Justice presents the following.
The Honourable Member for Springfield-Rashott.
Madam Speaker, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Dauphin, that the report of the committee be received.
It has been moved by the Honourable Member for Springfield-Rashott, seconded by the Honourable Member for Dauphin, that the report of the committee be received. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed? Agreed, and so ordered. Tabling of reports. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to table the 2023 report on the repeal of acts not in force required under Part 6.2 of the Statutes and Regulations Act.
And in accordance with Section 28 of the Auditor General Act, I am tabling the Auditor General's report titled Manitoba's Rollout of the COVID-19 Vaccines, dated April 2023. Ministerial statements, member statements. The Honourable Minister of Municipal Relations.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Elijah Modi, a constituent who has been both a notable role model and professional community leader with significant achievements that have contributed to the community. George Wong began to serve his community by volunteering as an interpreter and translator at the International Centre in Winnipeg. He would then further his work for the community by co-founding both the Association of Foreign Medical Graduates of Manitoba and the Burmese Community Organization of Manitoba, organizations that assist immigrants in establishing their lives here in our province. He assisted newcomers in Manitoba as president of the Immigrants and Refugees Community Organization of Manitoba, where he oversaw the funding and construction of 67 settlement house units in Winnipeg. Some of the most notable groups that this organization's units helped settle was the first group of Polish refugees our province received during the era of the Eastern Bloc disintegration, as well as the first group of Kurdish refugees who came here during the first Iraqi war. He has also remained very active in regards to our arts and cultural communities, being part of the Winnipeg Downtown Biz Chinatown Banner Jury Panel, as well as lending his time as a board member for both Folklorama and the Folk Arts Council of Winnipeg. George is also a successful local businessman, a multilingual certified management consultant. He has successfully assisted local businesses as well as promote the management consulting profession both here and abroad. In fact, his work in the field earned him an induction of life membership by the Canadian Association of Management Consultants and the distinction of being the first and only visible minority awarded to this honor, Madam Speaker. He also spent a number of years sitting as a council member of the Seven Oaks Hospital Foundation. He is a person who always wishes to do what he can to help make our community stronger and better. Please join me in recognizing our special guest, George Wong, his wife, Dr. Ang Lin Chan, his brother, James Wong, his brother-in-law, Cha Tan, and his nephew, Nicholas Tan.
The honourable member for St. John's.
Nurses are a critical part of our healthcare system. The last few years have been incredibly difficult for nurses with a pandemic, critical staffing shortages, mandatory overtime, no contract, the list goes on. And through it all, nurses showed up. You know who hasn't showed up? The Premier and her health minister. That's right. They're too busy sitting around imaginary tables. I've had so many nurses reach out directly sharing that they don't feel safe walking to and from their vehicles. Nurses have shared pictures with me of their broken vehicles that have been broken into, windows smashed, and just last week, feces was spread on the door handle of a nurse's car. Last July, we heard of a nurse whose car and credit cards were stolen while she was at work helping Manitobans. The Premier and Health Minister have failed to take any actions to help solve this safety issue. In 2019, the government promised to implement institutional safety officers at hospitals. 4 years later, still nothing. The government's own report found that over half of Manitoba healthcare workers are considering quitting, and 67% of nurses are considering to quit as well. That is a shameful testament to how badly these individuals have made our healthcare system. Our healthcare system cannot afford another 4 years of this incompetent and callous PC government. It's time for a change, Madam Speaker. And to all Manitoba nurses and to those working on the front lines, I am so sorry that you do not have a government that is there to protect and stand up for you. Please know that our NDP team sees you and we stand with you. Miigwech.
Further member statements? The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm proud to rise today and recognize the exceptional work of Carla Martinelli Irvine, the founder and executive director of the Winnipeg Pet Rescue Shelter, Manitoba's first registered charity no-kill shelter. Since its inception in June of 1999, the Winnipeg Pet Rescue Shelter has been providing a safe and caring home for thousands of abandoned, abused, and neglected animals. Under Carla's leadership, the shelter has become a beacon of hope for animals in need, providing a safe place, food, medical care, and love to the many pets left behind. Through her work, Carla has also inspired many in our community, encouraging all of us to do our part in protecting and caring for animals, trying to get me to take a third dog. Her passion for animal welfare has been contagious, and her leadership has resulted in the Winnipeg Pet Rescue Shelter becoming a true community hub for animal lovers. Thousands of volunteers throughout the years have supported the shelter. Currently, they have over 40 volunteers, some of which have been serving as volunteers for over 10 years. Now at their new location in the courts of St. James, the shelter has many seniors who pay visits and spend time with these loving animals, which is a moment of joy for both the seniors and the pets that are looking for a new home. The Winnipeg Rescue Shelter is 100% donor funded, and they are grateful to the community that has supported them for all these years. Their most significant fundraiser is the Pause for Life Gala, in recognition of Carla Martinelli Irvine's outstanding contributions to animal welfare. I ask all members of this House to join me in thanking her and her guest, Christina Richard, Marie-France Reed, Karen Earhart, Paula Pochard, and Kelly Ryback for their commitment to creating a better world for animals and making our community better every day. Thank you.
The honourable member for St. Vital.
Simply put, Madam Speaker, St. Vital is full of champions. First, I would like to recognize the Lancers, whose junior varsity girls basketball team became provincial champions on March 14th by beating Maples Collegiate 74-67. The team's amazing championship effort was powered by all-star Emily McLean and remarkably talented MVP Taylor Shep, who scored 54 points, leading the team to victory. 6 days later, the varsity girls basketball team won a provincial championship and successfully brought back a banner to the gym, again defending their provincial 4A championship from last year. The team, led by All-Stars Daria Rom, Izzy Fust, and MVP Kaya Fust, defeated the Garden City Gophers 67-43. Along with the championship, I must also note the amazing accomplishment of the varsity girls team, who has not lost a single game on a Manitoba court in more than 2 years. Also joining us in the gallery today is the Dakota boys track team, whose outstanding athletics won the 2021-22 provincial championships in both indoor and outdoor track. The Lancer track and field coaches, Mikhail Gurlow, Ryan Hudson, and Mark Rowland, have incredibly built up their team by focusing on participation, individual development, and creating a welcoming space where young athletes know that there's a spot for them. But Madam Speaker, there's even more. This year's Glen Lawn Collegiate Lions junior varsity volleyball team were on top of the province as well. Last December, they won the 4A boys provincial title after winning a 4-set match. The grouping of incredible young athletes, including All-Stars Nico Nato, Augustine Okos, and MVP Ben Doan, were motivated to learn, train, and become the best they can be in their sport. Madam Speaker, I ask all of us to join in celebrating the athletes in the gallery today from Glen Lawn and Dakota Collegiate, and I celebrate your hard work. Congratulations.
Yeah, right on.
The honourable member for St. Vital.
There are so many champions and the number is over 50. I'm going to ask for leave to include all the names of the athletes and coaches in Hansard.
Is there leave to include all of those names in Hansard? Leave has been granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development, Investment and Trade.
Madam Speaker, I rise in the House today to honour Joe Potenzel, a longtime resident of Red River North, for his outstanding contributions to his Grand Beach, Grand Marais community. Joe has over 40 years of serving the communities of Grand Beach and Grand Marais in various capacities. In the hospitality business, he's operated both the former Grand Beach Surf Club and now the current Potenz's Restaurant and Bar. Potenz's is a mainstay of the area and frequented by both residents and summer visitors. Joe was the founding chairman and president of the Eastern Beaches Development Corporation and helped develop and implement several programs over the years, and many community economic initiatives have benefited from Joe's involvement. Madam Speaker, assisting also to the development of the Thunder Mountain water slides and the development of the Grand Beach Entertainment Center. Joe recently was involved in the dredging of the channel in Grand Beach Provincial Park between the lagoon, Madam Speaker, and Lake Winnipeg. With the war in Ukraine, Joe felt a strong need to help refugees. He also helped families find housing, employment, household goods, and food. He was instrumental in organizing a Ukrainian fundraiser, the Rock Benefit Concert, at the Met, which raised over $100,000 to assist Ukraine refugees settle right here in Manitoba. Joe is also a true humanitarian. In the early 90s, Joe was the recipient of a life-saving award from then Mayor, the Honourable Bill Norrie, for performing CPR on one of his neighbours. And also just recently, Madam Speaker, Joe was a recipient of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal. Whether in his role as an entrepreneur in the hospitality business, spearheading and developing new community initiatives, or as a humanitarian, Joe is always there, ready and willing to help. Madam Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me today in welcoming and acknowledging Joe Potenza, who is here with his guest, Honor Lee Amos, in joining us today in the gallery. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We have some other guests in the gallery that I would like to introduce you to. We have seated in the public gallery from Warren Collegiate 30 grade 11 students under the direction of Lee Stewart, and this group is located in the constituency of the Honourable Member for Lakeside. On behalf of all honourable members here, we welcome you to the Manitoba Legislature. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Manitobans are hearing from frontline healthcare experts. We're very concerned about this Premier's plan to make more cuts to our healthcare system and to privatize it. Dr. Dan Roberts said, and I quote, "There is a clear difference between engaging private companies in an accountable and appropriate fashion versus turning the system into a pork barrel," end quote. Sleep doctors, they were forced to resign from the surgical task force committee that they were on because their concerns were ignored. And of course, Gray surgeons brought forward solutions for our public health care system only to have those proposals rejected by the Premier and the Health Minister's table. Will the Premier tell the House why she ignored sleep doctors at the Misericordia, why she rejected proposals from Gray surgeons, and why she ignores the advice of frontline health care experts like Dr. Dan Roberts?
The Honourable First Minister.
Madam Speaker, we welcome the advice of all frontline healthcare workers, Madam Speaker. But I will also note that the Leader of the Opposition once again is putting false information on the record in this chamber. We are making record investments in healthcare, almost $8 billion. Madam Speaker, this year alone, $668 million increase, 9.2% increase to healthcare. That's more investments in our healthcare system, not less.
Here, here.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
You know, Madam Speaker, thousands of Manitobans are waiting for surgeries in our province right now, and it's because of the cuts that this government has made. It started under Brian Pallister, and it's continued right through the Stephenson government's time in office. Now, instead of pushing a privatization agenda, this government could listen to the frontline experts who are bringing forward all sorts of solutions that would see us invest in the front lines, investing in our public health care system. But of course, this Premier rejects those things out of hand and then comes to the chamber and tries to deny that these events have taken place. So why is the Premier rejecting advice to enhance our public health care system and pushing ahead with this privatization agenda?
The Honourable First Minister.
Just factually incorrect, Madam Speaker. Once again, the Leader of the Opposition continues to do this. We are investing more record investments in healthcare, almost $2 billion more than the NDP ever invested in our healthcare system. We will continue to stand up for patients each and every day in our province.
Here, here.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary.
Well, Madam Speaker, here are the facts. When you look at cardiac wait times, people are waiting longer than ever before. When you look at people waiting for hip and knee surgeries, they're waiting longer than they ever have, and it's because of this Premier's cuts to health care and the mistakes that they've made. during their time in office. That's probably why people like the Minister for Finance are quitting. They're frustrated with the state of our healthcare system. We know that there's a ton of mistakes being made each and every day. But one thing that this PC government has refused to do when it comes for surgical wait times is to set a clear date by which the backlog will be cleared. Will the Premier do so today? Will she commit to Manitobans a specific date by which they will have to stop waiting for surgeries?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Speaker, let's talk about backlogs in the province of Manitoba. In fact, we've completely eliminated the wait list for cataract surgeries, CT scans. This, of course, is the pre-pandemic or the pandemic backlogs for ultrasound tests, cardiac catheterization lab tests, pacemaker surgeries, pediatric neurodevelopmental assessment, urology tests, Madam Speaker. The list goes on, Madam Speaker. I'll continue in the next line of questioning.
Yeah. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
You know, Madam Speaker, I'll just table the documents created by this Premier's government that actually prove Manitobans are waiting longer than ever for the surgeries that they need. We know that in rural Manitoba, rural paramedics are speaking out. Of course, they've been ignored for many years, they've had their wages frozen, and they've been denied the ability to practice to their full scope of ability. Now, some of them are speaking out directly in public forum, like the media, and one rural paramedic said this directly: "Have things gotten better? No. Simply no." End quote. That's what they said. This was in the Winnipeg Sun. Why has the Premier done nothing to address the bad working conditions for rural paramedics across our province?
The Honourable First Minister.
Madam Speaker, we want to thank all the paramedics for everything that they do to help patients in the province of Manitoba, both in rural Manitoba and in Winnipeg, northern Manitoba, all over this great province of ours, Madam Speaker. We will continue to make record investments in healthcare to ensure that they can deliver on those services, Madam Speaker. What Manitobans don't want to go back to is the dark days of the previous NDP government, who, when they were in power, closed 20 rural ERs.
Oh my goodness.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, the Premier is trying to distract from the terrible situation in healthcare right now. People in rural Manitoba are waiting longer than ever to have an ambulance show up during their time of need. We have tabled these data points time and time again, and continually the PCs reject the evidence that is present right there in their own backyards. The Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals president spoke out, and he said that the situation for rural paramedics is, quote, honestly terrible, end quote. It's wrong. The government is refusing to take accountability for the mess that they've made in healthcare, and they know it. That's why they have to heckle, because there's no action that they can point to that has actually improved healthcare in Manitoba. Will the Premier acknowledge for the House that the situation for rural paramedics is as they say, and that it's honestly terrible?
The Honourable First Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And while the Leader of the Opposition continues along his line of putting misinformation on the floor of the Chamber, Madam Speaker, I will remind Manitobans of what happened under the dark days of the NDP government, where they were closing rural emergency rooms, Madam Speaker. In places like Emerson, they closed. Manitou closed. McGregor closed. St. Claude closed. Gladstone closed. Vida closed. Erickson closed. Rossburn closed. Wawanesa closed. Birtle closed. Rivers closed. Balder closed. McCreary closed. Winnipegosis closed. Whitemouth closed. Toulon closed. Madam Speaker, the members opposite should be ashamed of themselves.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary.
Madam Speaker, the Premier continually tries to distract from how bad healthcare is in Manitoba right now. Folks in rural Manitoba are waiting longer than they ever have for ambulances, and rural paramedics are speaking out. Everything that I said in the preambles to the previous questions was attributable to a specific paramedic, the ones who say that things are getting worse. the ones who say that the situation is, quote, honestly terrible. What does this government do? Do they invest in rural paramedics? No, they freeze their wages. Do they actually have a strategy when it comes to rural health care? No, they don't. They have talking points and heckling. Madam Speaker, we know that the situation for rural paramedics is one that needs urgent fixing. We are committed to that project.
Right.
Why does the Premier continue to only bring talking points when Manitobans want investments in health care?
That's right.
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, Madam Speaker, this isn't a distraction. It's in fact just putting the facts on the record, right. Madam Speaker. And I look forward to the Leader of the Opposition visiting all of those communities that I mentioned, Madam Speaker, because he should go out there and tell them the facts. The facts are that they close their rural ERs in those communities. Right. So I look forward to him going out there and actually saying the facts to those communities.
Hey.
The Honourable Member for Union Station.
Madam Speaker, after 7 years of cuts, this PC government is now shifting to the next phase of their plan. This Premier is intent on privatizing and contracting out the delivery of health services, even though there's existing capacity that the PCs refuse to invest in. We know they ignore proposals from the orthopedic surgeons at the Grace to increase procedures and force them to go public with their concerns. Will this health minister tell Manitobans why she decided it was not possible to direct funding to the front lines of our public health care system and fund orthopedic surgeries right here at home?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So today we see a continuation of what the member for Union Station was doing yesterday, which was more NDP smoke and mirrors, Madam Speaker, to try to distract from Manitobans knowing what our government has been doing through the Diagnostic and Surgical Recovery Task Force. Madam Speaker, in terms of orthopedic hip surgeries, over 2,109 knee replacements, over 1,600 orthopedic hip surgeries, 200 more surgeries will be done at the Grace Hospital, Madam Speaker, standing up the Concordia 5th OR, 1,000 more hips and knee replacements. Madam Speaker,
yeah,
more and not less.
Hey.
The Honourable Member for Union Station on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, you know, it's unfortunate that the minister didn't bother to outline the thousands of Manitobans who continue to wait for hip and knee surgeries right now in Manitoba, and it's sad that she continues to confirm that she doesn't think she's accountable for the current state of health care in Manitoba. The PCs continue to put their ideology of cuts and privatization ahead of patient outcomes. Instead, this minister's own task force actually directed the Grace Hospital to cut their surgeries by 20% and force them to go public with their concerns. My question for the self-declared Minister of the Art of the Possible: is it possible that her government's continued cuts and inaction over the past 7 years is the reason why the public has no trust in her?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It was only a few short months ago, and I intend, after I leave the chamber today, to go and pull out that information and table it tomorrow, that the members opposite were standing in front of the podiums, in the rotunda and in the media, and right into my office and calling my office, pleading for our government to pay for out-of-province surgeries, for individuals who went out of country for surgeries, Madam Speaker. And then through the task force, we created those pathways for individuals to get approval to be able to access a suite of services. Now they're angry that we did what they had stood in front of podiums and media and asked to be done, Madam Speaker. They don't want Manitobans to know that we are taking the steps necessary to ensure they get the care they need.
I am, prior to the member proceeding with her their question, pardon me, I would like to indicate that when referring to members in the House, it should be by their proper title, and I would indicate that the member for Union Station was using an improper title for the Minister of Health. So I just want to indicate to all members that when you are addressing members in the House, it is to be by their official titles. The Honourable Member for Union Station.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for...
Order. The Honourable Member for Union Station.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for that reminder, and I will adhere to that moving forward. Madam Speaker, sadly, this PC Health Minister still thinks that 7 years of cuts and chaos is the right move. Manitobans are correct in their assessment that this PC government cannot be trusted when it comes to health care. And while she hides in her office with her so-called table of solutions, she ignores advice from medical experts and health professionals across our province. Talk is cheap, Madam Speaker. When will this health minister actually lead by example by investing in solutions for wait time reductions at home here in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, I know the members opposite struggle with mathematics, Madam Speaker. So 200 more hips and knees and orthopedic surgeries at Grace. That is addition, Madam Speaker. A 5th OR at Concordia Hospital to do 1,000 more hips and knee surgeries. That is addition, Madam Speaker. And all the funding that has gone into ensuring that Manitobans will get the care that they need, Madam Speaker, such as our capital investments. $283 million for a new 90-bed hospital in Portage la Prairie. More, Madam Speaker, addition again. $127 million for a new 60-bed hospital in Nipawa. More, Madam Speaker. More physicians, Madam Speaker. More incentives for nurses to retain, train, and recruit, Madam Speaker. We continue to make record investments, something they never did.
The Honourable Member for St. John's.
Rachel Lenz is desperately looking for help for her son Bentley, who has complex medical needs. Rachel knows her son needs much more support than she's able to provide. She reached out to CFS 17 months ago for help to place her son in a residential group home. Bentley still has not received a placement. She's burnt out and she feels as though, and I quote, she's treading water, end quote. She says that the system has failed her family. Can the minister explain why are families like Rachel's having to wait so long for the care that they need desperately right now?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And of course, the wait times were substantial. Of course, that was when we formed government. There had not been any investments in respite or solutions for parents who are dealing with adolescents and children who are facing severe developmental and intellectual disabilities. There was no investments prior to our government forming office and committing to an $8 million bridge program and an additional $4 million in 2 respites that are now underway. And of course, if the member has a constituent that she would like me to look into their personal case, I would be more than happy to do it. But our government has recently invested $12 million in supports that the member did vote against.
The Honourable Member for St. John's on a supplementary question.
Rachel Lenz has requested her son Bentley, who has complex medical needs, be placed in a residential group home with 24-hour care. She was told the average wait time is around 10 months, yet 17 months later, her family continues to wait. She says this puts an immense amount of stress on her and the whole family, Madam Speaker. Can the minister explain what actions she is taking to ensure that children are able to get the group home placements that they desperately need?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Of course, our government is committed to ensuring that we deal with the wait lists and work individually with families and provide a person-centered approach, and certainly willing to work with any family who is experiencing challenges and needs solutions to those complex challenges. That is why our government introduced the first ever $8 million bridge program because we believe that it is inappropriate for families to need to put their children in CFS care when there are no protection issues at all, but just simply to get the additional support that they need in dealing with their adolescents and children with complex disabilities. And that is why we invested that $8 million in the bridge program, and that is why we are committed to expanding that service.
The honourable member for St. John's on a final supplementary.
In May of 2022, Rachel was told by CFS her son Bentley was able to move into a group home in July. 2 months went by, then in September the family was told that their spot was given away. To this day, the family continues to wait for a placement for their son Bentley. Rachel is a social services worker and a healthcare aide. She knows better than anyone her son, Bentley, requires more support than she's able to provide. She is here today in the gallery with us, and I'm asking if the Minister of Families will meet with Rachel and her support today after QP to discuss her son Bentley's case.
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Madam Speaker, that member and I just spent some 8 hours in committee. We have been working on other issues together. I've been providing that member issues. There's been plenty of opportunities for her to bring forward individual case information for my department and myself to look into. And I believe that any time a situation has been brought to my attention, I have actioned it accordingly, and we have had dialogue and contact with the family and helping work through their issue. And so there has certainly been an openness on my part and my department's part, and I certainly wish that the members opposite would have chosen to pick up the phone and contacted me to bring this information forward so that I could action it appropriately.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Concordia.
Madam Speaker, Manitoba's Crown Attorneys continue to be another group of provincial employees that are being disrespected by this PC government. This morning, the Manitoba Association of Crown Attorneys issued a news release regarding the significant vacancies at Winnipeg and other regional offices. In it, President Erica Dulcetti said, quote, "We are concerned about the administration of justice in our province as well as the physical and mental well-being of our members. This cannot continue," end quote. When will this PC government stop disrespecting Crown attorneys and come up with a recruitment and retention plan to fill vacancies and address their high caseloads?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Of course, we do respect our Crown attorneys and the important and significant work that they do. There was a formal grievance that was filed by the Manitoba Association of Crown Attorneys. It alleged that the workload conditions were putting prosecutors at risk of not fulfilling their professional obligations to the Law Society. That was filed when the NDP were in government. I wonder if the member opposite said anything at that time. Oh.
The honourable member for Concordia on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, the reality is that crime has increased under this PC government, and all the while the responsibilities of those Crown attorneys have been expanding year over year. This PC government has not increased support and time available to keep pace with the surge in the workloads they are dealing with. Although they're not compensated for it, Crown attorneys regularly work nights, weekends, and holidays, all the while continuing to fall behind in managing their caseloads as violent crime continues to rise. When will this PC government stop with the cheap talk and support the work of prosecutors who are working to keep our public safe?
Right now.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
A few years after that complaint was filed, Madam Speaker, under the former NDP government, MACA also then came forward and said that some Crowns were juggling up to $400,000 files at a time, and that the NDP had ignored warnings in 2009 about a report that was co-authored with Crowns that were looking at workloads. I understand from Crown prosecutions that the workload would be about half of what it was when it was stated that it was 400 files. I wonder why the member was bringing forward cheap talk today, but said nothing then, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Concordia on a final supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We'll continue to try to bring this minister into this decade and to the here and now, where this Stephenson government continually disrespects our public servants, puts our province at a disadvantage when it comes to trying to recruit and retain prosecutors from across the country. All the while, provinces like Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia, even next door in Saskatchewan, are actively and successfully recruiting away Manitoba's senior Crown attorneys. Manitoba's justice system is suffering, and Manitoba's safety is at stake because of the actions of this PC government. Why should anyone trust this government when they show such disrespect to the work of the Crown attorneys?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, in fact, last year there were 14 new Crown prosecutors that were recruited in Manitoba. I understand that the vacancy rate at the end of this week will be around 6%, which is where it historically is, or has been, Madam Speaker, at least under our government. But of course, under the former government, there was workloads of about 400 files, according to MACA. And there were workers' complaints, there was complaints that were filed by MACA under the former government where the member opposite said nothing. I wonder why we should trust the NDP when they have a part-time MLA and a full-time defense lawyer.
The honourable member for Wolseley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Retroactive costs for RCMP services are owed back to 2017, and that represents a 23% increase to policing costs that Manitoba municipalities are on the hook for. Without any additional funding, municipalities will be forced to make cuts, raise taxes, or both. Selkirk has warned that the back pay could cost $101 tax increase per household. Yet the PC government has been silent on this issue. Can the Premier explain why she has failed to make this issue a priority?
Order. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
The Premier has spoken out about this issue in her current role and in her former role as the Minister of Justice. I have, and former Minister of Justice have as well. This House actually has a resolution currently before it that has been debated 2 times, calling on this House to unanimously agree that the federal government should fulfill that back pay for municipalities. We have agreed to that. I'm not sure about the Liberals, but the only people who haven't supported that resolution are the NDP. If they actually believe this, why don't they support the resolution?
The honourable member for Wolseley on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This government likes to blame others. They have blamed the federal government, but when I say they've been silent, they have not said what they will do to help. Municipalities are waiting for leadership from this PC government. After a 7-year funding freeze, municipalities simply can't afford any additional major costs. Major costs like $45 million in back pay that's owed to the RCMP. The province needs to step up and support municipalities. Can the Premier explain what actions her government is taking to ensure municipalities and their ratepayers aren't left holding this bill?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, this government, this Minister of Municipal Relations has provided record funding for municipalities. AMM has been very supportive of that funding. AMM has been very supportive of the call we've made to the federal government to ensure that that back pay was paid by the federal government. But this isn't blaming others, Madam Speaker. There's a resolution currently before this House, before the Manitoba Legislature, calling on all MLAs to agree that the federal government should do the right thing and pay that back. The only people that are holding up that resolution are the very people who are asking this question. It's the height of hypocrisy, Madam Speaker.
Order. Order. The honourable member for Wolseley on a final supplementary.
Madam Speaker, this government thinks that it's appropriate to starve somebody for 7 years, then invite them to a banquet, and then expect that they're going to be grateful. And that's what they've done to municipalities. 19 municipalities in Manitoba pay for policing through the province, not the federal government.
Order.
They want leadership from this government. Without any additional funding, they'll be forced to pick up the $45 million tab for RCMP back pay. That would force municipalities to make cuts, raise taxes, or both. That's not what municipalities or Manitobans want. Can the Premier explain what she is doing to ensure that ratepayers aren't being forced to pick up the $45 million tab?
The member's time has expired. The Honourable Minister for Municipal Relations.
Madam Speaker, the AMM applauds the Manitoba government for providing an additional $47 million in unconditional funding for municipalities. Who said that? The AMM President, Cam Blight. As inflation has significantly impacted municipal budgets and municipalities are not permitted to run deficits, this historic municipal funding announcement will help local councils respond to current financial pressures, build stronger communities, and finalize local budgets with certainty. Who said that, Madam Speaker? AM President Cam Blight.
There we go.
As the second largest city in the province, this new funding will support and help the city of Brandon with long-term planning while helping us deliver the best services to our residents. Who said that, Madam Speaker? Mayor Jeff Fawcett, Madam Speaker. On this side of the House, we stand with municipalities.
The member's time has expired. Order. 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 As a courtesy to Hansard, I would ask that members try to contain themselves when these, issues are being discussed. Hansard needs to pick up on all of this, and when there is such a loud noise in the House, I can't hear, and Hansard can't hear, and the clerks can't hear. So we're all kind of stuck unless everybody respects the process in here. So I'm going to ask for everybody's cooperation, please. The Honourable Member for St. Boniface.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The report we tabled on healthcare resilience earlier this week really laid bare the reality of how this PC government has decimated the healthcare system. The Premier said it's a problem everywhere, but the report makes it clear it's worse in Manitoba than anywhere else, with half of workers considering quitting. The Premier said it's the pandemic, but the report makes it clear it was bad before the pandemic. The Premier has denied cuts, but they're in black and white. It says many have faced wage freezes despite higher workload, so people are leaving. Was this report kept confidential and its urgent recommendations ignored because it undermines the government's entire narrative on what they've done to healthcare in this province?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, we value and appreciate all health professionals, whether they work in the civil service, whether they work in community health, acute care. We value and appreciate their feedback. We regularly send out surveys and ask for reports because it's about continuous improvement, Madam Speaker. We recognize that there's more work to be done. We are committed to work with our health system leaders, our leaders in the civil service, to ensure that any changes that are needed are made.
The honourable member for St. Boniface on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I tabled a global news story from September 2020 where instead of getting ready for the pandemic second wave, the then Premier and Health Minister announced they were going to proceed with a self-described disruptive reorganization of health. At the time, Brian Pallister said the system was top-heavy and tough love was needed to cut the bureaucracy. The people who lost their jobs were payroll, human resource, and accounts receivable. Incredibly, the Manitoba NDP is now running on exactly the same promise to cut the people who do the paperwork so that doctors and nurses and health professionals don't have to. The April 2022 Resilience Report says changes like these drove people out of the system. Does the Premier accept responsibility, or are they going to deny what this report says?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, our government is investing in health human resources. That is why I was pleased to stand with our Premier on November 10th of 2022 to announce the Health Human Resource Action Plan, to announce a historic investment of $200 million, Madam Speaker, to add 2,000 health professionals to the health system. We're continuing to work with unions, we're continuing to work with stakeholders to listen to the front line so that we can achieve this growth that is needed in health human resources.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Manitoba Health is denying health coverage for some individuals here in Manitoba on work permits because of a technicality. Under current legislation, a person must reside in Manitoba for 12 months straight in order to be eligible for health coverage. For the most part, this requirement is met. However, some work permit holders are just a few days shy and they are being disqualified for health coverage. Madam Speaker, those with work permits pay taxes and contribute to our economy just like everyone else. What is this minister going to do to ensure those who are here on work permits are eligible for Manitoba health coverage?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, I thank the member for bringing this issue forward because it's actually an issue we have been addressing with the federal government because it's actually a glitch in their work permit. And I ask and call on the member to contact the Liberals, the federal Liberals, to ask them to make the change in how their work permits are handed out and the timelines that is given to individuals who receive these permits. We are more than happy as Manitobans, this welcoming province, to ensure individuals receive health care, but it's a federal government glitch, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Borderland.
Madam Speaker, while the NDP politicizes healthcare in Manitoba, our government is focused on patients and providing the quality care they need. Our government has eliminated pandemic backlogs in 10 areas, including CT scans, cataract surgeries, ultrasound tests, and backlogs in many other areas have significantly been reduced. Can the Minister of Health elaborate on additional investments our government has made to help Manitobans living with back pain get the care they need more quickly?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
I thank the member for Borderland for the question. Madam Speaker, our government invested $400,000 to hire 4 new physical therapists to reduce wait time at the spine assessment clinic. As a result of this investment, patients living with back pain have seen wait times to see physical therapists reduced by more than 60% in the past 8 months. The increased staffing has allowed patient capacity to nearly triple from less than a year ago, allowing for many more patients to be seen. I'm thrilled to see this progress. Our government continues to be committed to improving patient care, bringing down wait times, including access to specialized services such as this. Thank you.
The honourable member for Notre Dame.
Madam Speaker, this PC government is completely out of touch with regular Manitobans. While the Premier conveniently forgets to disclose over $30 million from her investments, hardworking Manitobans in the construction industry are left waiting to find out if they'll get a wage increase this fall. This past month, the PC government closed public input on their plans to cut wages for apprentices and others working in the trades. When will the minister confirm whether or not these workers can expect a wage increase this fall when the general minimum wage is set to go up?
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the member and I have sort of gone back and forth over this. I have stated many times that we are not discussing anyone's wages being lowered. So I don't know why the member keeps bringing these false assertions to the floor of this chamber. It's irresponsible, and I think it's disappointing to Manitobans. First and foremost, I want to thank all the apprentices who have chosen a career in trades. It is a rewarding career, and our government has invested over the last 7 years to enhance the program, where under the NDP, they lost track of hundreds of apprentices and never followed up to see if they could enhance their programs to help them complete their certificates.
Good.
The Honourable Member for Notre Dame on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, the cost of groceries keeps going up. Gas costs continue to be prohibitive, but this Premier could not care less about the workers and apprentices who build our province. Apprenticeship and construction industry wages are currently tied to the minimum wage, but the PCs are now looking to cut future wage increases for these skilled workers, and that's wrong. Will this minister stop her plans to cut apprenticeship and construction wages today?
Good job, Malaya. Well done.
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's unfortunate the member has to continually look at her notes and the prepared questions for her on this when I've already clearly answered her question. Now, I can't help the member listen to the answers or understand what they mean, but I am happy to reassure Manitobans that we are not looking at reducing any wages of any apprentices here in Manitoba. In fact, we did proceed with a process to get their feedback. It's something the NDP did not do. They don't reach out to get feedback from industry, from stakeholders, from people who are going to be impacted by their decisions. They make their decisions and then they impact Manitobans with no ability, aside from elections, to give feedback. We will not do that. We will not disrespect Manitobans like the NDP have.
Here it
is. The time for oral questions has expired, and I have a ruling for the House. Following oral questions on April 13, 2023, the Honourable Minister of Sport, Culture and Heritage raised a matter of privilege regarding an incident which occurred over the lunch recess on that day during an event held in the Rotunda. The Minister alleged that during the event, the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition attempted to physically and verbally intimidate him, including making several profane comments. The Minister concluded his remarks by moving, and I quote, that this matter be immediately referred to a permanent standing committee of this House for investigation, end quote. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition spoke to the matter of privilege, apologising to the Minister for the interaction, but also disputing the facts that they had been related. The Honourable Member for River Heights also spoke to the matter before I took it under advisement. As members know, there are two conditions that must be satisfied in order for a matter raised to be ruled in order as a prima facie case of privilege. Was the issue raised at the earliest opportunity, and was sufficient evidence provided to support the member's claim that their privilege or the privileges of the House were breached? In his submission on this matter, the Honourable Minister of Sport, Culture and Heritage indicated that this was his earliest opportunity to raise this in the House, and I accept the member's words on that point. On the second condition of whether the member provided sufficient evidence to support a prima facie case of privilege, there are several factors to consider. Regarding the issue of intimidation of a member, in order for a breach of a member's privileges to have occurred, Joseph Mango advises on page 222 of the second edition of Parliamentary Privilege in Canada that the activity in question must involve a, and I quote, proceeding of Parliament, end quote. This concept is supported by numerous rulings from Manitoba speakers dating back as far as 1988. As was noted in those rulings, debate in this chamber or in a committee constitutes a proceeding of Parliament. However, events taking place outside the chamber, such as a public event in the rotunda, do not fall within that purview. Further to that point, Speaker Perront of the House of Commons ruled in 1997 that in order for a member to claim that their privileges have been breached at the time of the alleged offence, they must have been functioning as a member actually participating in a proceeding of Parliament. As well, on page 620 of the third edition of House of Commons Practice and Procedure, Bosque and Gagnon state that the Speaker has no authority to rule on statements made outside of the House by one member against another. For these reasons, I must conclude that a prima facie case of privilege was not established in this case. Before I conclude this ruling, though, I have some thoughts to share with you. I found it concerning that there were two different versions of the same event shared within this House. As noted earlier, I am unable to rule on events outside of this chamber, so it is not my place as Speaker to try to mediate that difference of facts, but I am troubled that either version of the incident could have occurred at all. Whether you are serving as MLAs in a proceeding of Parliament, or whether you are out in the community, I wish that you could all treat each other respectfully and honorably. I cannot count how many times I have stood in this spot and asked members to do better in your interactions with one another. I have expressed this sentiment in many ways over the years, and each time I felt hopeful that the message would resonate. I'm going to try that again now, and I truly hope that you will all take this message to heart. The 57 people chosen by the citizens of Manitoba to represent them in this place occupy rare air. We have all been granted an exceptional opportunity to try and make this province a better place to live for all Manitobans, and I strongly believe that every single one of you wants to do that. I understand how this place works. I have been a continuous member of this assembly longer than anyone in this room. So I know how and why partisan agendas drive the actions of members. And I know that partisan behavior is an important part of how things get accomplished here. I feel, though, that in recent years, the temperature in this room has been rising. I feel that the balance between partisan agendas and professional courtesies has tipped in the direction of partisan divisions and away from constructive and collegial interactions. Let me be clear about this. I am not saying that any one side of the House has caused this circumstance. Our entire political dynamic has shifted this way in this chamber and in our community. This is also not unique to Manitoba, of course. We see this across the country and around the world. In the face of this trend, however, my personal wish is that this assembly could be an exception. I believe it is possible for all of us to take a long, hard look in the mirror and resolve to do better, to be adversaries, but not enemies. People watch what we do here in this chamber and in this building, and what we do here matters to the people of Manitoba. I would urge all of you to remember that while we are doing this important work, that we can be civil and even kind to one another. We can disagree, debate, criticize, and advocate, but if we cannot demonstrate the kind of civility and respect to each other that we would expect of people outside of this place, work associates, constituents, even our families, how can we expect our constituents to respect us and support us? In a few months, most of you are going to be asking the good citizens of this province to cast a ballot with an X beside your name. When you are out knocking on doors and meeting folks, I hope you will be able to tell them you have done better here, that you have done your best to represent them respectfully and capably while advocating for their best interests. Thank you all for your attention to this ruling. Petitions. The Honourable Member for Transcona.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, these are the reasons for this petition. Number one, since taking office, the provincial government has cut operating funding of post-secondary institutions such as Brandon University, while simultaneously increasing tuition and student fees. Number two, Brandon University is the only university in rural Manitoba and serves as an important hub for Westman. Number three, Brandon University is the largest university outside of Winnipeg with over 2,200 full-time students and just under 1,000 part-time students. Number four, despite the important role Brandon University plays in Manitoba, the provincial government is continuing to cut the university's funding in budget 23-24 as funding yet again fails to keep pace with inflation. Number five, inadequate funding hurts students and the quality of education they receive, as it may force Brandon University to raise tuition, cut programs and services, or both. Number six, funding cuts also negatively impact Brandon University's faculty, who are at risk of having their courses cut or being let go altogether. Number seven, the provincial government has failed to explain why Brandon University's 23-24 operating funding increase falls below inflation and why it is lower than other universities in Manitoba. We therefore petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to adequately fund Brandon University so that the institution can avoid making cuts and continue to serve students, faculty, Westman, and the province of Manitoba as a whole. This petition, Madam Speaker, is signed by many Manitobans.
In accordance with our Rule 133(6), when petitions are read, they are deemed to be received by the House. The Honourable Member for Elmwood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. The background of this petition is as follows. Number one, Manitoba consumers believe products should last longer, be repaired when broken, and that planned obsolescence has environmental consequences that threaten a sustainable future. Number two, in 2021, the European Union set minimum design standards for many electronic devices with new right to repair legislation. Number three, the right to repair enables consumers access to the resources needed to fix and modify their products, appliances, including cell phones, washing machines, and refrigerators. Number four, the right to repair also allows the consumers and electronic repair businesses access to the most recent versions of repair manuals, replacement parts, and software, and other tools that the manufacturer uses for diagnosing, maintaining, or repairing its branded electronic products. Number five, the right to repair further allows consumers to reset an electronic security function of its branded electronic products if the function is disabled during diagnosis, maintenance, or repair. Number six, in addition, the right to repair ensures manufacturers replace electronic products at no cost or refund the amount paid by the consumer to purchase the electronic product where they refuse or are unable to provide manuals or replacement parts. We petition the Legislative of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to adopt right to repair legislation requiring manufacturers of electronic devices and appliances, including washing machines and fridges, to make information, parts, and tools necessary to repair available to consumers and independent repair shops. And this petition is signed by many, many Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, the background for this petition is as follows. 1. Healthcare is a basic human right and a fundamental part of responsible public health. Many people in Manitoba are not covered by provincial healthcare, migrant workers with work permits of less than 1 year, international students, and those undocumented residents who have lost their status for a variety of reasons. 2. Racialized people and communities are disproportionately affected by the pandemic, mainly due to the social and economic conditions which leave them vulnerable while performing essential work in a variety of industries in Manitoba. 3. Without adequate health care coverage, if they are ill, many of the uninsured will avoid seeking health care due to fear of being charged for the care, and some will fear possible detention and deportation if their immigration status is reported to the authorities. 4. According to the United Nations Human Rights Committee, denying essential health care to undocumented, irregular migrants is a violation of their rights. 5. Jurisdictions across Canada and the world have adopted access without fear policies to prevent sharing personal health information or immigration status with immigration authorities and to give uninsured residents the confidence to access health care. 6. The pandemic has clearly identified the need for everyone in Manitoba to have access to health care, to protect the health and safety of all who live in the province. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1. To urge the provincial government to immediately provide comprehensive and free health care coverage to all residents of Manitoba, regardless of immigration status, including refugee claimants, migrant workers, international students, dependent children of temporary residents, and undocumented residents. 2. To urge the Minister of Health and Seniors Care to undertake a multilingual communication campaign to provide information on expanded coverage to all affected residents. 3. To urge the Minister of Health and Seniors Care to inform all health institutions and providers of expanded coverage for those without health insurance and the details on how necessary policy and protocol changes will be implemented. 4. To urge the Minister of Health and Seniors Care to create and enforce strict confidentiality policies and provide staff with training to protect the safety of residents with precarious immigration status and ensure they can access health care without jeopardizing their ability to remain in Canada. This petition has been signed by many Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Point Douglas.
Madam Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. The background to this petition is as follows. 1. According to Census 2021, Punjabi is the 4th most spoken language in Canada, and there are 33,315 people in Manitoba whose native language is Punjabi. 2. Thousands of Punjabi newcomers are coming to Manitoba as students and as immigrants looking to call this province home. People of Punjabi origin contribute a great deal to the social and economic development of Canada and Manitoba in fields such as education, science, health, business, and politics. 3. In coming to Manitoba, Punjabi newcomers make sacrifices, including distance from their cultural roots and language. Many Punjabi parents and families want their children to retain their language and keep a continued cultural appreciation. 4. Manitoba has many good bilingual programs in public schools for children and teens available in other languages, including French, Ukrainian, Ojibwe, Filipino, Cree, Hebrew, and Spanish. Punjabi bilingual programs for children and teens, as well as Punjabi language instructions at a college and university level, could similarly teach and maintain Punjabi language and culture. 5. Punjabi bilingual instruction will help cross-cultural friendships relationships and marriages, and prepare young people to be multilingual professionals. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to take steps to implement Punjabi bilingual programs in public schools similar to existing bilingual programs, and take steps to implement Punjabi language instruction in other levels of education in Manitoba. And this has been signed by Karmajit Singh, Kuldeep Singh, Manpreet Singh, and many others.
Grievances? Orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a series of committees to announce. I'd like to announce that the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development will meet on Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill 29, the Life Leases Amendment Act, and Bill 38, the Builders Lien Amendment Act, prompt payment.
It has been announced that the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development will meet on Monday, May 8, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill 29, the Life Leases Amendment Act, Bill 38, the Builders Liens Amendment Act, prompt payment. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to announce that the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs will meet on Monday, May 8, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill 21, the Highway Traffic Amendment Act, Bill 22, the Emergency Measures Amendment Act, Bill 25, the Workers' Compensation Amendment Act, Wildlife Firefighters, and Bill 36, the Fair Registration Practices in Regulated Professions Amendment Act.
It has been announced that the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs will meet on Monday, May 8, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill 21, the Highway Traffic Amendment Act, Bill 22, the Emergency Measures Amendment Act, Bill 25, the Workers' Compensation Amendment Act, Wildfire Firefighters, Bill 36, the Fair Registration Practices in Regulated Professions Amendment Act. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd also like to announce that the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs will meet on Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill 23, the Vulnerable Persons Living with a Mental Disability Amendment Act, Bill 31, the Animal Care Amendment Act 2, and Bill 32, an act respecting child and family services, Indigenous jurisdiction, and related amendments.
It has been announced that the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs will meet on Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill 23, the Vulnerable Persons Living with a Mental Disability Amendment Act, Bill 31, the Animal Care Amendment Act 2, Bill 32, an act respecting child and family services, Indigenous jurisdiction, and related amendments. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to announce that the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development will meet on Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider Bill number 10, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Amendment Act, Social Responsibility Fee repealed.
It has been announced that the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development will meet on Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider Bill number 10, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Amendment Act, Social Responsibility Fee repealed. The Honourable Government House Leader.
And finally, I'd like to announce that the Standing Committee on Justice will meet on Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill number 7, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Amendment Act, Bill number 16, the Domestic Violence and Stalking Amendment Act, and Bill number 27, the Intimate Image Protection Amendment Act.
It has been announced that the Standing Committee on Justice will meet on Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to consider the following: Bill 7, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Amendment Act, Bill 16, the Domestic Violence and Stalking Amendment Act, and Bill 27, the Intimate Image Protection Amendment Act. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, could you please resolve into Committee of Supply?
It has been announced that the House will consider estimates this afternoon. This House will now resolve into Committee of Supply. Mr. Deputy Speaker, please take the chair.
we're going to start in supply.
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Chairperson, I'm seeking leave to recess this section of Committee of Supply.
To reconvene back into the House.
To reconvene back into the House.
There has been a request to recess this section of supply and reconvene back into the House. Is it the will of the House to do so? The will of the committee, sorry, to do so? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. This House, the committee is recessed.
Call in the Speaker.
Call in the Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm seeking leave to allow the two sections of Committee of Supply to sit concurrently with the House while the House considers other business, with the understanding that if a recorded vote is required in one section, the House will resolve into the Chamber section of Supply to conduct the vote. And just for certainty, the two sections that will continue on are in Committee Rooms 254 and 255.
Is there leave to allow the two sections of the Committee of Supply, which are sitting in room 254 and 255, to sit concurrently with the House while the House considers other business, with the understanding that if a recorded vote is requested in one section, the House will resolve into the Chamber section of Supply to conduct the vote? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is there leave to consider in the House this afternoon without notice a government motion regarding a request for the provision of security camera footage?
Is there leave to consider in the House this afternoon without notice a government motion regarding a request for the provision of security camera footage? Agreed? Agreed. Agreed and so ordered. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move, seconded by the Minister of Advanced Education and Training, that in accordance with section 34 and 52(1) bracket 1 of the Legislative Assembly Act, the Speaker direct the Chief Legislative Security Officer to provide to the Speaker a copy of the security camera recording concerning the incident that occurred between the member for Fort White and the member for Fort Rouge during the lunch recess at the event that was held in the rotunda of the Legislative Assembly on April 13th, 2023, and that on receipt of the copy of the security camera recording, the Speaker is requested to take reasonable measures to make it available to all members and to members of the Manitoba Press Gallery in a manner determined by the Speaker.
It has been moved by the Honourable Minister of Justice, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training, that in accordance with sections 34 and 52.1 bracket 1 of the Legislative Assembly Act, the Speaker direct the Chief Legislative Security Officer to provide to the Speaker a copy of the security camera recording concerning the incident that occurred between the member from Fort White and the member from Fort Rouge during the lunch recess at the event that was held in the rotunda of the Legislative Assembly on April 13, 2023, and that on receipt of the copy of the security camera recording, the Speaker is requested to take reasonable measures to make it available to all members and to members of the Manitoba Press Gallery in a manner determined by the Speaker. Are there any members wishing to speak in debate? Is the House ready for the question? The question before the House then is the motion just put forward by the Honourable Government House Leader. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? The motion is accordingly passed. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Could the section of estimates in the chamber resolve into committee of supply?
It has been announced that the section of supply will reconvene in the House. Mr. Deputy Speaker, please take the chair.
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Justice. At this time, we invite ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber. Could the minister and critic please introduce their staff in attendance? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you. To my left, we have the very capable and efficient Assistant Deputy Minister of Justice, Maria Campos. Immediately in front of me is the extraordinarily talented Chief of Staff to the Minister of Justice, Marty McNichol. To my right is the always hard-working, diligent Deputy Minister of Justice, Jeremy Akerstream. Did I get that right? Acker? Yeah, right.
As previously noted, questioning for this department will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for Concordia.
I believe the Minister has an update for the committee.
The Honourable Minister.
Okay, I have some information to provide the member as I committed to yesterday. He had asked for the vacancies of Crown attorneys in the various offices. So I'm advised that in Winnipeg there are 10 vacancies. In Brandon there are no vacancies. In the Paw there is 1 vacancy. In Thompson there is 1 vacancy. So in total there are 12 vacancies. There are 187 FTEs for our Crowns, which means the vacancy rate is 6.42%. I can advise to the member that we had 14 new hires for Crown attorneys in 2022-2023, and there were 8 terminations, which doesn't mean they were fired, it just means that they went on. So there was a net gain of 6 Crown attorneys last year, and I'm just seeing if there's more information. So we have, and this was also asked by the member yesterday, there are 2 technical officers in my office. The executive assistant to the minister is Hunter Christensen, and the aforementioned Marty McNichol is the chief of staff or special assistant. Is there also on the what about the other?
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, and then there was a question regarding staffing at correctional facilities. In the total of the correctional facilities, so Brandon, Headingley, Milner, the Paw, Winnipeg Correctional Center, Remand, and the Youth Center, there are in total 1,508.75 approved FTEs, and there are 2,069 actual staff working.
The Honourable Member for Concordia.
Okay, just a Just a couple quick notes on, or questions, follow-up questions to those two of many pieces of information that we asked for yesterday. If the minister could clarify with regards to vacancies among Crown attorneys, can he indicate any leaves of absences or maternity leaves, any other reason why somebody is not currently working, in addition to the vacancies that he listed? And if I'm understanding the minister, he gave us the information with regards to staffing at the correctional institutions in aggregate, but I think we were looking for a breakdown, individual by individual center. And likewise, in addition to that, we also asked about the number of beds at each of those corrections institutions, broken down by each individual center.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Yeah, thank the member for the question. I think he indicated that we hadn't provided all the information that was undertaken. I know we get he might as well, I'm not sure, but I know that we get a list of the undertakings from the previous section of supply. So we received that list. There were two undertakings, and we've provided the information. So that's not a list that I create or that I vet. It's created by officers of the Assembly. So if he's suspicious about me, I know he doesn't have those same feelings about officers of the Assembly. But having committed to those and fulfilled those, I do want to answer the question that he's just asked on the issue of leaves and whether it's because of maternity or otherwise. We don't have that information. I understand that those are, decisions that are made on a personal basis, and that we wouldn't inquire about why somebody might be on a leave. But in terms of the breakdown for the individual facilities, because he's right, I provided the information in aggregate, I can provide more details. So in the Brandon Correctional Center, there are 153.8 approved FTEs, and there are 217 actual staff working. At the Headingley Correctional Center, there are 353.9 approved FTEs, and there are 548 actual folks working. At the Manitoba Remand Center, there are 257.95 FTEs, and there are 369 people actually working. At the Paw Correctional Center, there are 104.5 approved FTEs, and there are 115 actual staff working. At the Winnipeg Women's Correctional Center, there are 173 approved FTEs and 229 actual staff working. At the Winnipeg Remand Center, there are 214 actual or approved FTEs and 326 staff working. And then at the Manitoba Youth Center, there are 251.6 I think I'm going to have to correct myself, but I'm going to go back and finish this thought. On the Manitoba Youth Center, there are 251.6 staff or approved FTEs, and there are 265 actual staff working. So just to make a correction, so at the Winnipeg Remand Center, there are 214 approved FTEs and 326 actual staff, and then I think I incorrectly labeled Milner Ridge, if I left that one out. So at Milner Ridge Correctional Center, there are 257.95 approved FTEs and 369 staff. So then just to repeat, there are throughout the correctional centers 1,508.75 approved FTEs and 2,069 actual staff working.
The Honourable Member for Concordia.
So just to be clear for the record, because I know the Minister understands this and knows this, the list that was created by the clerks to indicate questions that required follow-up was based on the words of the Minister. So, of course, the Minister in the beginning of estimates had said, yeah, of course, I'm going to answer all the questions. I'll get the member all the information. And then as we went through the day, it devolved to the point where the Minister says, I won't get you any information. I won't answer any questions. So maybe the Minister can just be more clear. Maybe he can start with, I am going to answer the question the member has asked, and whether that's happening now or whether it's happening in the future, then we have that on the official record. He is going to answer the questions as they come in. And I thought we had an understanding yesterday that the Minister wasn't always able to get the information immediately, but that we could ask a number of questions and that he would undertake to answer them. But as he rightly pointed out, he didn't answer them and he didn't commit to answering them. So by my count, there was 32 questions yesterday that the Minister should have answered, and I think we're up to maybe 4, and that's maybe, or 5 maybe, that's maybe being generous on 3 of them. and maybe I'll just even to the members, the information that the Minister's put on the record today. I think he's conflating two things, if I'm understanding him correctly. In one case he's talking about FTEs, and in another case he's talking about individuals working. So of course that isn't helpful for purposes of understanding vacancy rates, right? So I mean, it's pretty clear how the Minister's trying to spin instead of just answering the question, because I think it's pretty straightforward information that people would expect that the Minister should be able to. I mean, he could spin the politics of it, but certainly not the facts, and that's what we're asking for. So again, what we're asking for is the FTEs allotted for each correctional center, but then also how many of those FTEs are fulfilled, not the individuals that are working there. Likewise, I did ask about the number of beds at each facility. So if the Minister can undertake to get that information to the committee, that would be helpful as well. And then we can move on. Of course, I have another 40 questions here that time is ticking on.
The Honourable Minister.
We were off to such a good start, and I was so optimistic about the way this afternoon would go, and I don't want to say that I'm disappointed now, but I really was hoping for better when providing the information that was given. Now, I think it's important because there might be, like yesterday, another 20 people watching, and for those people to know how this process works. And so in estimates, critic asks questions, Minister, if they have the information there, they can answer it there. If not, they commit to an undertaking, which I did yesterday on a couple of items. It's not, I don't write it down in terms of the undertaking. The good folks who work at Legislative Assembly, and I mean that in the most heartfelt way, they are good folks, then very quickly provide me and staff in the department a list of what was undertaken. So that's a non-political process. I'm disappointed that my friend from Concordia would try to politicize the individuals doing that work, because they're not political, and I've never known them to act in a political way. They simply go through Hansard, I guess, or maybe they're monitoring it in real time, and they then provide to me and to the department the items that were undertaken, and then there's a certain time frame by which they have to report it back to you. Not, by the way, the next day. I think it might be 30 days or 60 days. I'm not sure what it is, but it's some amount of time. We, though, wanted to provide the information the very next day, and did, and somehow the members aggrieved by that. Now, just to recap yesterday, he bounced around a bit there. He said that I had agreed to take all these things as advisement and get back to him, and then he said that I refused to answer questions. So that's not exactly a consistent position. But just to recap, because it was some time ago now, so the member may have forgotten,
He asked a particular question. I told him that we could take that under advisement and get back to him today. He said, no, that's not good enough. I'll just wait. I said it could be 10 or 15 minutes, and he said he was patient. He had all the time in the world. So I said, fine, then we'll wait that 10 or 15 minutes. And then when I said that, then he rattled off about 15 different questions while we were waiting to get the answer that he said he was going to be patiently waiting for. And so I indicated to him that he was willing to wait for the answer to the question, and so we would do that, and that all the 15 questions he rattled off in between were not part of that arrangement. So, you know, I'm happy to continue on with this process in the amiable way that we started. So I'm hopeful that the member will also feel that way, and will allow us to answer questions in that sort of a reasonable way, and not try to politicize the Legislative Assembly staff or in a derogatory way, because that doesn't shine a good light on him or me. I mean, really doesn't shine a good light on the institution, and I really value the Legislative Assembly and how people feel about it. And I value the estimates process, which is why we brought back the information. Now, the member seems to think that, you know, this is somehow political to provide the information, but I know, like, I know what it's like to be a critic, and sometimes you ask a question thinking you're going to get a certain kind of answer, and when it doesn't come back that way, and it doesn't come back the way you hoped it would from a political perspective, you feel disappointed, and you think, well, there must be something up about that, and maybe sometimes feel a little bit embarrassed. I've been there. I know what that's like. In a situation like that, not here to give advice to the member, but I would suggest just moving on then. If the answer isn't what you'd hoped, if the answer isn't what your pre-prescribed narrative in your mind was, just moving on to the next question. That's actually good advice for question period too. My friend from Fort Garry would know this. You know, sometimes you ask a question and the answer isn't what you thought it might be. Just pivoting, moving on to another question isn't a bad way to go. So the member asked how many FTEs there were in the correctional centers. I told him just over 1,500, and then indicated there were just over 2,000 people working there. Well, that's probably not what he thought, because he has this other narrative that positions aren't being filled and that there's cuts and all sorts of other things. So yes, there are more people working than there are actually FTEs approved. That doesn't fit into the opposition's narrative. That's fine. Just move on to another question. Maybe you'll find a nugget somewhere as it does fit into your narrative. So that's my one and only, hopefully, a bit of advice to give to the member opposite today as we go through the rest of this estimate process.
The honourable member for Concordia.
That's disappointing. I think the minister needs to be clear about the information that he's putting on the record here, and I think it's pretty straightforward stuff. We're asking about the number of FTEs within each of those centers and the number of FTEs that are currently being filled right now. We would like to get a little bit of information with regards to the Dauphin Courthouse project. Of course, the Dauphin jail was closed with no consultation from the community. The member for Dauphin said he was fine with it. The people in Dauphin are not fine with it, but as sort of their try to buy their way out of this, they've said, well, now we're going to we're going to upgrade the courthouse. So what we're looking for is an update on that project, and any information the minister can give us in terms of the overall cost and expenditures so far.
The honourable minister.
I won't spend a lot of time getting political about the issue of the jail. I mean, obviously, there's the member opposite sat in a government that had an opportunity, if they wanted to do something in terms of building a new jail, they could have. In fact, I don't remember all the details, but I think it was Minister Swan or former Minister Swan who conducted, maybe it was McIntosh, who conducted a review of jails in the province, and there were a variety of different recommendations that came out of that particular review. And I'm not sure why, if there was a recommendation in there for a new jail in Dauphin, why the former NDP government didn't act upon that. But clearly it was either not recommended or they didn't act upon it. I'd have to go back and pull that review because it was some time ago. But the member, is trying to go back into that sort of political narrative. But he is right about the upgrades of the Dauphin Courthouse, a beautiful looking courthouse, but that needed significant upgrades. Also something the NDP chose not to do. I remember touring there as a critic at one point when I was in the role that the member for Concordia holds now, and both being impressed at how beautiful the building is, but also how it needed some upgrading to function in what would be expected in today's modern court world. And for whatever reason, the NDP just chose never to do that. I'm not sure if they didn't value the courthouse. Maybe they're planning to decommission it or close it if they would have won government in 2016. That might likely be the case, actually. They're probably going to close it. But we did invest to upgrade it. In terms of the actual construction process, though, because I don't want to belabor this point, in terms of the actual construction process, that is under the Minister of Labor, Government Services, Labor, and a few other things. The MLA for Radisson, Minister, I won't name him, his department, where they centrally do a lot of the construction for a lot of the different capital in government. So I know that the member, I think at one point had done a FIPA, and that of course went to that department because they're responsible for the construction. So he could either FIPA again, or he could bring that up at the estimates for that department, which I don't think have happened yet.
The honourable member for Concordia.
Okay, so again, we're getting away from the original questions, and the minister reminds me that if he doesn't commit to answering questions, then our staff here in the building won't record it. So is he still working on those FTEs? Is that like I don't know what's going on here again? He's refusing to answer questions, and we were talking about beds in our correctional facilities. Is he committing to get those numbers? Like this should be the most basic stuff available to the minister, but he looks confused once again.
The honourable minister.
There are times, as the famous group Genesis said, it is a land of confusion, and he knows what a fan I am of Genesis and Phil Collins. But I think I did actually provide the FTEs at each facility, but I'm happy to do them again for the member. In Brandon, there are 153.8 approved FTEs. At the Headingley Correctional Center, there are 353.9 approved FTEs. At Milner Ridge Correctional Center, there are 257.95 FTEs. At the PAW, there are 104.5 FTEs. Women's Correctional Center, there are 173 approved FTEs, and at the Manitoba Youth Center, there are 251.6 FTEs. And then in terms of the rated bed capacity in the correctional centers, in the Brandon Correctional Center, the rated bed capacity is 252. At the Headingley Correctional Center, it's 549. At Milner Ridge Correctional Center, it's 524. At the Women's Correctional Center, it's 196. At the Winnipeg Remand Center, it's 289. And at the PAW, it's 114.
The honourable member for Concordia.
So, again, I'm not sure why the minister won't answer the question. He makes it seem like maybe he's trying to hide something, right? Like, and that's, I think, the point I was trying to make yesterday as well. This is information that the information itself is nonpartisan, right? This is just the facts. The reason we have this process is so the facts come forward. Then we go to other venues and we have arguments about what those facts mean and what larger story they tell. That's kind of what we do in this place. And so I'm happy to defer all of those kind of conversations to another venue, but Unfortunately, the minister refuses to answer the question as to how many FTEs are filled in each of those facilities. And so what, begs the question, why is the minister scared to tell Manitobans that? Why is he refusing to tell people what the real situation is? Is there, I didn't actually come in here with any kind of, presupposed narrative. Actually, I was just trying to get the information. The narrative comes later. Today is about the facts. And the minister doesn't serve democracy well when he doesn't tell all the facts here in the chamber. This is very worrisome stuff. So, I think that there is some serious questions that need to be asked about why the minister isn't providing that information. Moving on to another slightly different topic with regards to this minister's task forces that have been established by the government. The question is, can the minister confirm whether their newly announced police task forces, the Integrated Missing Persons Response Task Force and the Integrated Child Abuse Response Task Force, are these entirely new units, or are they previously existing structures that are being altered or reprofiled with staff taken from other files and re-engaged in these new task forces?
The Honourable Minister.
So I will answer the member's question as I've endeavored to answer all of his questions. I would take some exception. I think maybe part of the challenge is, and I'll take some blame for this. I'll take responsibility because I asked that this be held in the chamber. I actually like having estimates in the chamber, but I think maybe the member opposite, because of the echo effect in here, isn't hearing the answers. So I sometimes use the earpiece, right? Particularly when there's not a lot of folks in here, because you get that echo, and he might want to do the same, because I think what's happening is he's not hearing the answers, or he's presupposing they're not being answered. So I have some sympathy for him, and maybe I should have had this in room 254, room 255. I might consider that next time. So just to repeat for the member, I did indicate that there are 1,508 FTEs collectively in our centers. I gave them the breakdown, and there are 2,069 staff, which I know he doesn't like that. It doesn't fit his narrative, and he said he didn't come in with a narrative. Maybe he should have. Maybe he would have, it might have been a good idea if he came in with a narrative instead of where he went. So I provided him that. I provided him the rated bed capacity for the facilities. Now, on to, again, I don't see him pulling out the earpiece yet. No, not the earpiece. But I'll try to speak clearly to minimize the echo effect in the chamber. In terms of the integrated units, which I'm very excited to speak about, when it comes to the missing persons integrated unit, the Winnipeg Police Service does have some officers assigned to missing persons. This would be an addition of officers for the RCMP. So there are new positions, not pulling from any other. I'm not they're moving around RCMP officers, but there are new positions created for the RCMP to make it an integrated unit. So it is new that it's integrated. It's now across the province, and I know that both Winnipeg Police Service and RCMP were very excited by that. In terms of the, we sometimes call it the high-risk warrant unit. That is an integrated unit that is being created and is necessary partly because of changes to bail. And I know if the member for Gary might not agree with this because he doesn't agree with reforming bail, but we believe it's important. And because there are more individuals who are being released that are then breaching, and we consider them to be high risk, the new integrated warrant unit, which will involve Winnipeg Police Service, RCMP, and potentially Brandon and maybe others in the future, are new positions and funded positions, my understanding. And then in terms of the child exploitation unit, which will be housed at the new Toba Center, which is near Assiniboine Park, and if the member hasn't had the opportunity to tour it, I would encourage him to do so. The new positions will allow for both RCMP and the Winnipeg Police Service to be integrated into the Toba Center, and to allow for just had a video dropped off, and to allow for there to be a province-wide response when there's child exploitation, and the member will know that is among the most heinous crimes that there are. So again, this might not fit the narrative, although the member said he didn't have a narrative coming into estimates. Maybe he should have brought one. These are new positions, funded positions, and either new or enhanced units because they're becoming integrated.
The honourable member for Concordia.
Well, the level of doublespeak is pretty phenomenal from this minister, and his reputation with that regard is certainly being lived up to here. What I will just say is that, what I heard him say is that, for our wonderful staff who are listening along, he has now indicated all 32 questions we asked yesterday, he is going to commit to getting me an answer on, because that's what he now says he's going to do. So that's great. That is exactly right. And one side of his mouth, he says, don't politicize this process. How dare you politicize this process? Well, the member should have come with more of a politicized narrative to further the questions. I simply want to get the facts on the record, and the minister continues to not give those facts. This is common stuff. An FTE is comparable to an FTE, not a body in a facility. So that is where the minister is trying not to answer the question.
Order, please. Time being 5 p.m. Committee rise. Call on the speaker. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until tomorrow at 10 a.m.